We just got a new campaign box announced for Marvel Champions. In this video, we're going to be talking about the villains or the scenarios that are coming with it. Welcome to Nelson All Over Cards. My name is Nelson, and today we're diving in and taking a look at one of my favorite games of all time, Marvel Champions. We're going to be evaluating the new encounters that are coming in the Next Evolution campaign box that was just announced. And we're going to be walking through each one of them, kind of talking about my ideas and everything. Yeah, I'm excited. It looks really solid. I put out a separate video talking about the heroes. So if you're interested in that video will be linked right here, as well as down below in the video description. So you can go take a look at those videos for the heroes and the aspect cards. I'm doing this video so that we can talk about the encounter cards and the scenarios. And so that way we can, one, it was going to be an insanely long video if I put them all together, but two, also, if you're here, this is going to be spoilers to the extent of what Fantasy Flight has published about their villains, about all of the encounters. We're going to talk about those. So if that is something that you want to avoid and not necessarily watch until you get your hands on it, this video is not for you. That being said, there's going to be timestamps down below in the description, or I guess I think it pops up on the YouTube bar as well. So if there's a specific scenario that you're looking for or interested in, you can go ahead and jump to that specific spot, but we're going to be diving in and talking about them. One of the more exciting things about this announcement is that they gave us all 5 of the encounters that are going to be in this box, which is pretty cool. I think historically they've only done about 3 of them. So being able to see and understand the storyline that progresses over the 5 different encounters is really cool, and it's a fun through line because the entire overarching story of this box is kind of protecting Hope Summers, who the villains for some reason need her, and they're trying to capture Hope Summers, and our job is to make sure that that does not happen. Each one of the encounters kind of goes into their plots on how to capture her or other different targets that they are looking for their Sinster plot. So we're going to go through and talk about each one of them. First up, we have Morlock Siege. Morlock Siege is a multi-villain scenario, and you know I love those, so this one's really exciting. There are actually 7 different villains that you can choose from, and the way that it's going to work is you're going to randomize and take 3 of those. Those are going to be the ones you're going to be facing off against in the scenarios. This feels very similar to like the mansion attack, where you have where it seems like you're going to have a minion version of all the villains, and then if a villain comes out that has the same value as the minion, then that gets discarded, they activate against you, all of that good stuff. That's at least what happens in standard mode, as you can see by this card. Actually, maybe over here, I don't know where it's going to be. But I am kind of curious on how that changes in expert, because that does say standard mode only. I'm curious to see how they mix this up in expert. But each one of the villains has a special effect. Like Arclight, who states that when she attacks you or an ally you control, you must confuse a character or she gets +2 for her attack. A lot of them follow the same, or actually all of them follow the same kind of method where you have to choose when they attack. Choose one of 2 different bad effects. Chimera is the same triggering condition, but you either have to give her a +2 or spend a mental resource. And then Grey Crow is discard the highest cost card you control or plus attack equal to the cost of that card. That's going to be bad. Don't play Avengers Mansion. I mean, that's a +4. You got to get rid of him real quick. Vertigo stuns or gives you a +2. Blockbuster gets a tough status card or a +2. And then there are 2 others that we don't know, Harpoon or Riptide. Those are kind of covered up. Those are a little bit more on the obscure side. We don't know what they're doing, but it's not going to be good. I wonder if it's going to be spend energy in a physical. That would be my guess, but here we are. But as you progress in the scenario, the encounter cards are going to get stronger, so the game does ramp with the players. In a normal Marvel Champions game, you're facing like stage 1, and then there's a step function in difficulty to stage 2 or stage 2 to stage 3, where you come in with new stats and all of that. Because these are 7 different villains with an A and a B side, I assume standard expert side, they don't necessarily, one's not stronger than the next. And so you are going to have encounter cards that ramp with how many villains you've defeated, which is a really cool way to do that, to balance and make sure that the game is ramping with you. For example, Bolstered by Wrath gives the villain a +1/+1, and then cost more to discard it based on how many villains you've defeated in the the past, while like Push to the Limit gives the villains a +1 attack, and then either Steady or Stalwart if you defeated 1 or 2 previous villains. So it's not just a standard formulaic, this costs more to remove now. It has different benefits and different effects, which I am really excited for. I think that that's going to lead to a lot of replayability in this multi-villain scenario, and it feels like every single time they've done a multi-villain scenario, they've gotten better. They've gotten better at it. And so this one seems really freaking cool. To add even more excitement to the mix, this scenario is not just a slugfest against the villain, you have to protect your Morlock allies. So these are allies that don't count towards your limits, and they become the target of every villain attack initiated against you instead of yourself. So you have to be able to protect these allies because they have a negative victory point condition. I'm assuming that there's a loss condition that if like all your Morlock allies die, you don't get to win the game. That seems pretty fair, honestly. You can't just let all the people you're protecting die. So it seems kind of like a Robert Kelly situation from the Sabretooth scenario. But there are ways to protect your allies. So cards like Hide give them a tough status card, and then you can use the printed action on the main scheme to exhaust an ally and shuffle that Hide card back into the encounter deck so that you can pull it out and get even more tough status cards. I'm really excited for this scenario. It feels like an interesting mix of like the Brotherhood scenario or Mansion Attack scenario and Sabretooth scenario with like some really cool ideas and implementations on how to actually ramp the difficulty where, yeah, it's just going to be cool. It's going to be cool. It's going to be a cool first scenario. The second scenario is pretty cool as well. It uses those same villains. So where you pick 3 from the Marauder villain set, which I guess is what we probably are going to call it, the villain set instead of modular set. The villain set, the Marauder villain set, you pick 3 for the first scenario. This time you're only picking 1 of them. And that one has captured Hope Summers, and you need to defeat that specific villain twice. Before you defeat them the first time, they have an attachment called Hope's Captor, and then once you defeat them once, you flip that over, and they become desperate, making them even tougher. This scenario will have other Marauders as minions, hoping to disrupt your plans, and allowing the villain to scheme if you are engaged with one. So instead of attacking, the villain that is captured Hope is going to scheme, and then if you scheme out, then you lose the game. So you do have to be managing the minions that are engaged with you, taking those out so that you're not scheming really quickly to that loss condition, and so you can kill the villain off before they escape with hope. This scenario seems interesting. I'm more excited for the first scenario, but we don't have as much information on this one. It will be fun, as it sounds like it's going to force you to rush and thematically chase down the Marauder villain before they've escaped, or you get overrun by their teammates, which seems fun. It seems interesting. Yeah, I'm pumped for scenario number 2, but scenario number 3 is going to be insane, and that's Juggernaut. So Juggernaut hits you like a truck on stage 1. I've seen him compared to like the new Rhino, and he's going to be a tough Rhino. So he has a 1-2 stat line on stage 1 with 18 health. That's a lot of health. But when revealed, he gets a tough status card and a momentum counter. And then the momentum counters, at least on stage 1 of Juggernaut, gives him +1 attack. I assume that will carry over, that printed +1 attack per momentum counter will carry over to the other stages of the villain. It may get worse. I don't know. And I assume we will see cards in his kit that will give him momentum counters. But he does get them for scheming out. And my favorite part about this scenario is it's a scenario that you don't necessarily lose by scheming out. If you reach the threat threshold, which is 7, it's not a lot. It's a single scheme, I assume a single scheme scenario. You hit 7, you don't lose. You follow these steps in order, and you may lose, but you don't immediately lose. You remove all the threat. If Juggernaut is exposed, and we'll talk about that here in a second. We flip over his exposed card. We place a momentum counter on Juggernaut, which boosts his attack, and then Juggernaut attacks each player, even if they're in alter ego form. So you can lose if you die, which is an interesting mechanic, but you don't auto lose if you do scheme out. I'm excited to see how this plays solo compared to like a Rhino scenario, because there's a lot more going on in this scenario, but also you don't get that feel bad auto lose if you flip down in Advance or something like that. I think it may be hard to actually not lose if you get that surprise activation. But I mean, who knows? We'll see. Okay, so Juggernaut starts with his helmet in play, which gives him Stalwart and Overkill. So if you're thinking about stun locking him or not, if you're thinking about chump blocking against him, no deal. Good gracious, but you can get rid of this condition. You can spend 3 resources to remove all the momentum counters from Juggernaut and then flip his helmet to his exposed side. So when I said when you scheme out on the main scheme, you go from exposed to helmet side. This is what I was talking about. And on his exposed side, he takes 1 additional damage from each card with the mental resource, which is a really cool mechanic. A lot of the cards that deal damage kind of have a correlation with physical resources, like those are typically the damage dealing cards, but we do have cards like melee, allies that have the mental resource will do extra damage. Professor X can deal 1 damage to Juggernaut now with this 0 attack. I don't recommend doing that. And it does combo with our new ally, Hope Summers, from her own mod set. And I am so pumped about this mod set. It's a mod set that reminds me a lot of the Ship Command or the Milano mod set from Galaxy's Most Wanted, where there's an ally, Hope Summers, and she gets like thwart an attack equal to that of your villain. And then I think all the other cards, I assume all the other cards are going to be shuffled into the encounter deck and then are going to interact with Hope Summers. And so you get this benefit, you get this cool ally, and if she leaves the game, you lose, but you do get that initial boost, and cards are going to interact with her. There's a card that's not going to let her ready, and all of this cool stuff that I am really excited about this design space and how mod sets can interact with the player side of the table as well. So I'm really excited about the Hope Summers mod set. But she has that printed mental resource, so she gets the +1 attack whenever Juggernaut is exposed, and so that's just going to be a really cool interaction. The last thing that is on the exposed card for Juggernaut is that whenever he schemes, he gets a momentum counter, and then you flip the card back to its helmet side. So there is a forced response in how he gets flipped back into his helmet side. He puts his helmet back on, and it's going to be a fun balance and gameplay interaction to determine when you want to flip Juggernaut, because it is expensive. It's 3 of the same resources, which is not necessarily easy to come by, and then how you want to make sure he's going to stay exposed. So he loses Stalwart when he's exposed, so you can confuse him. You can never roll down, and he'll just never he'll never scheme. Or you can confuse him, roll down, hope you don't draw an advance. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really cool. You're going to have to be reading that encounter deck to make sure that you're not going to spend the resources. He's going to immediately flip back, because that would be, oh god, that'd be so sad. So there's going to be fun interactions on the timing of when you want to expose Juggernaut so that you can deal a lot of damage to him. And he has a ton of health. 18 on stage 1 is crazy. And it's interesting to see where we're going to be on stage 3. Is it going to be like a Thanos with like the high 20s? That's going to be a lot of health. And flipping that helmet, dealing the extra damage with the mental resource is going to come in handy. It seems like the scenario is also going to require you to pace slightly differently than a standard scenario, because 3 resources is a lot when you're building. In the early game, you want to be spending the resources on building out your character, or building out your hero, so that they have enough to roll in and defeat the villain. How are you going to do that though, right? So you can't necessarily roll up and just get hit with a 3, because you can't really chump block because of the overkill. You can't stun lock him. So are you going to spend your resources early to flip him to his exposed side and then chump block? Are you going to do that and then confuse or stun lock? I think it's going to be hero dependent, and maybe you stay down and build a little bit, and you build, and then you have you scheme out one time, and maybe that takes 2 rounds or something. Scheme out one time, you tank the hit, and then you roll up. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm really excited to play this scenario. I think this one's going to be pretty cool. Villain number 4 is Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister is the mastermind behind the plot to capture Hope Summers, and he has such a cool forced response that rewards him for getting tough or hurts the players by stunning or confusing him, because he says that after a status card is placed on him, you place 1 threat on the main scheme. This is really interesting, and it combos very poorly for our side with super strength that gives him steady, making it very costly to stun or confuse him, and I just really like this design. It's another way to dissuade the status lock condition, which has been proven to be a very strong way to run a hero without just giving him Stalwart. Stalwart feels like okay, cool. Like, can't run, like Miles is going to have a tough time against Master Mold. He's always Stalwart. This is a way that you can dissuade that stunlock without just outright saying you can't do it. And I like that a lot. But Super Strength is not the only power that Mr. Sinister is going to be stealing from us over the course of the game. He can get overkill with his flight and retaliate in an additional scheme with telepathy. And these are permanent attachments. So it feels like the longer that the game goes on, the more we're going to have to square off with. We don't necessarily know how these come out. I assume it's going to be through a progression of the game. Maybe when we lose a main scheme or we defeat a stage of the villain, we get one of these attachments. And it's going to reward rushing, especially because you do not want to pull Genetic Mastery, which has different effects based on the different traits he has. So if he's set out, he has all 3 of these upgrades. That one encounter card, Genetic Mastery, is going to deal you 2 indirect damage, add 2 threat to the main scheme, and exhaust you. That's going to be absolutely brutal in solo. That's going to be incredibly bad in solo. It will be bad in multiplayer, but this feels like a scenario that is going to very much punish solo players unless you can rush them. And if you can rush them, then there may be a way to get there. But if you were getting hit with all 3 of these abilities, that's going to be tough. I do want to know more about the scenario, so I'll reserve my judgment for that there. But it does seem like it may not be super friendly to solo players. And the last scenario sounds like it will definitely not be friendly to solo players, and that's Stryfe. So Stryfe has a horrible 1 scheme and 0 attack, but Stryfe gets plus attack equal to the number of cards of the most common type in your hand. That's a little weird to say and a little confusing, but it basically is if you have 3 events in your hand, he gets plus 3 attack. That can really be brutal, especially for some of these less flexible heroes. So like Gamora, who heavily relies on events, is going to struggle massively here, and that's fine. That's fine. Like, we've seen characters like the Collector very much punishes Nebula, right? And apparently the Daughters of Thanos just do not have good matchups against specific heroes. I'm just kidding. But it can punish specific types of playstyles, which is interesting, and it requires you to kind of build a little bit more towards the scenario rather than just building a hero deck, which I like. I do enjoy that, but that's not exactly where the biggest issue for me with the scenario is, and that's more on the threat side of things. So stage 1 of the main also plays with this idea where you can add threat, or you have to add threat equal to the most common type of card from your hand, but before you do this, you can discard a card. So that is a nice little touch, and you're able to, like, if you have 5 events in your hand, you can discard a card, you'll add 4 threat, and then you'll get hit from Stryfe for 4. Just so it's not a 5 and 5. And so with this idea that you can discard cards to minimize the negative impact of the threat and the attack, that is nice. But the scenario comes with a permanent side scheme that has 4, hinder 6, and a crisis icon. With a stage 1 threshold of 9, this is, I think, going to be an issue for solo play. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. You really can't scheme because of the crisis icon. That's gonna be rough. After you defeat the side scheme or you defeat Stryfe, you flip that side scheme to the Living Bomb, which still has a crisis icon, and it states that Stryfe can't be defeated. Also, when you reveal this, you progress to stage 2 of the main, which gives you a +2 hand size. Woohoo! But the cost of every single card is increased by 1. And it's a really cool mechanic until you realize that it's going to be even bigger attacks. This is going to be a tough capstone villain because you're going to be sitting there with 7 hand size. Say if your hero has a 5 hand or a 5 hand size, you're now sitting at 7 cards. Every card costs 1 more, but the villain is still benefiting from you having multiple of the same type of card. And we have, support, upgrade, resource, allies. And so and events, I guess. So 5 different types of cards. So it's probably it will be a minimum of 2, right? Out of 5, yeah, math. Minimum of 2 attack, which is nice. But if you draw like 7 events, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You're going to be in a lot of trouble there. I'm interested to play it, but I'm really concerned about how this is going to work solo. I think it's going to require you to rush, and Rush rewards having multiple events in your hand. And I think that's going to be an issue because then this text against having those events. We'll see how it works. They have a very hit or miss track record with the capstone villains. And so it could be fantastic. We haven't seen the entirety of the encounter set, so we may have cards that help us benefit. We may have hope on our side. I think we do actually have hope on our side. And so there are ways that we can help. There are ways that help us get around it. I'm just very concerned about that low threat threshold with a Crisis 9 requiring or Crisis 10 side scheme. So it requires you to rush that down pretty quickly because a surprise advance or flipping to alter ego, I think could probably just lose you the game. And yeah, that's tough. That's pretty tough. But yeah, so those are the 5 villains. I'm really excited. I think I am more excited for the first half of the box. Like the first 3 scenarios look really cool. The last half of the box, I am interested in playing in a multiplayer setting more than I am a solo setting. That being said, the heroes, if you watch the hero video, seem really, really strong for solo play. And so these could be really cool heroes to take up against this box. So all of that to be said, I'm very happy with everything that was announced today. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my concerns, and those just happen to be in the latter half of the video. Let me just say I am super pumped for this box. It's coming out in August. I cannot wait for that. I think it's going to be it's a long wait, but it's going to be worth it. What we know now is in August, we're getting the 5 villains and at least 2 heroes that come in that box. If they do it similar to the Mutant Genesis release, we may get 2 more heroes on that same day. That is not a given, but here we are. I'm pumped. I cannot wait for August. Hopefully it'll be here before we know it. But until then, we'll be playing some Marvel Champions here. And if you enjoy Marvel Champions, if you enjoy Marvel Champions content, I invite you to follow along because I would love to have you. Yeah, I think that's all for today. This was a busy day. It was a very exciting day, and I was happy to live it with you all because it was a big day. We got a lot of new stuff and a lot of really cool new stuff. So let me know in the comments what villain you're most excited about. I want to have a discussion with y'all, and I will talk to you later. See you around. Peace.